Everyone, are we live?
Yes, good afternoon, sir. Yes, we are live now. And we have some of the participants also with us. So good afternoon, everyone. We are almost halfway through the faculty induction orientation program. And today we have with us Professor C.S. Sharma, sir. I think we all know him very well by now. We have listened to and attended various live sessions and recorded sessions by sir on different important topics.
You can put on your video, Shruti.
Yeah, I'll just do that. Am I visible now? Am I visible?
No, it's a black screen. I think your shutter, webcam ka shutter might be on.
I can't see you even now.
Yeah, I really don't know. I'm so sorry for this. I don't know what has gone wrong. I am extremely sorry for this.
No, not an issue, not an issue. I think there is some problem.
I mean, at my end, things seems to be completely fine. And I didn't even notice this.
Yeah, I interrupted you because I thought you didn't notice.
No, that's completely fine if you, ma'am. Well, I hope some of you might know me.
Yeah, that's okay. I think you can continue like that.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for this. So I was just discussing that we had this one session on quantitative research by Sir today morning itself. And now in the afternoon, we have Sir with us to discuss something very different. It is actually an art form that will not only rekindle our childhood memories, but through a very, very beautiful memory lane will lead us to some very useful practices of teaching learning process. This is the art of storytelling. Storytelling, as we all know, is the most beautiful narration that has been sustaining humanity since time immemorial. It weaves people into one thread through shared values and consciousness. So, through today's session, which is titled Value Oriented Teaching Use of Stories, we will see how storytelling can be an extremely significant source of teaching, imparting social values, and making learners' life ready. So we have with us Sir, Professor C.S. Sharma, sir. I welcome you, sir, once again. And it's always a treat to listen to you. I'm very excited for the interactive session that we will now be having with us. And I please request all the participants to participate through chat box. You can raise your hands. Please, I request you humbly to be part of this interactive live session. Over to you, sir.
Yes, good afternoon. They can speak also, they have the opportunity to speak or not?
We will have to unmute them. We can do that. And I can see one hand raised by Ma'am Swati. Ma'am, do you have any issues?
Yes.
I'll just unmute you, ma'am. Just give me one second.
Actually, her audio is not connected, so she won't be able to speak.
Okay, well, I think
it's a problem for her. No, it's a problem for her from her end. Her audio is not connected the way she is showing.
So if she has any issue, she can write on the chat box and then I think we can start the session.
Okay, in the meantime, I'll just leave for a second and join again. Maybe my camera will work then.
Yeah, do that.
Okay.
So I can't see the participants here. The system is like that. Is the system like that?
Sir, we have the participants with us, but we have not, asked them to actually on their video because of bandwidth problems. So they will be with us through the chat box. So they are all saying you good evening, and they will be with us. If they have any question, they'll raise hands and we'll let them unmute and speak.
Now, can I start then?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. Dear participants and the organizers of this program. I know you people have been working very, very hard and a lot of inputs and efforts are going on your behalf, on your part. It is really fantastic to see you working day and night for this program. Well, the topic today is value-oriented teaching and use of stories. Now, there are three issues that I would like to address here. First is why there is need for value-oriented teaching. And second question, what type of value, what values do we talk about? And three, which will be the larger portion of my discussion, how we can use stories. So as far as the need for value-oriented teaching is concerned, it is basically because particularly in subjects, I belong to a subject, commerce and management, where there is hardly any subject which focuses on the discussion of the cultural aspects of the society, whether Indian or other countries. So the direction in which the society is moving and what we need to do or what we as teachers could do is not a part of the curriculum, unfortunately. Similarly, in case of sciences, including mathematical and statistical sciences, the problem is the same, that there are no subjects which can give the students an insight into the functioning of the society at large and the functioning of the human mind. Therefore, we as teachers have to own this responsibility, that without indoctrinating the students, we make them sensitive, we sensitize them. And UGC has already stated that there are 3 contact hours per week, which have to be for the purposes of mentoring the students. So I'm assuming that each one of us devotes 3 hours for mentoring the students. And this mentoring is not merely for the purposes of advancing their knowledge in the field of in the curriculum, but also for helping them become better person. I would put it like this. Now, why value-oriented teaching? So the reason is one very important reason. Because now we say that this is the time of social media. Everything explodes beyond proportion. Even a very small fuse can ignite and result into a very heavy explosion, and which can take its own toll on human mind and also social groups and the society at large. And because of things like Facebook, WhatsApp, Telegram, Instagram, because of this, there is a problem. And unfortunately, the algorithms that have been made by YouTube, by Gmail, by Facebook, by Instagram, those are such that they expose you to the content which is what you are watching. Say, for example, you happen to watch a video which consists of, say, a bhajan. Now, suddenly, next time when you open YouTube, then 20 videos of bhajans will come in front of you. If you watch a video of a person who is denouncing Hinduism, then 20 next videos will come next time, which are only denouncing Hinduism. Similarly, if you are watching a video in which Islam has been or Muslims have been downplayed or criticized, or they have been condemned in some way, then similar videos will come in front of you. So you are exposed by this system. Our students and we also are exposed to the similar thing. And what happens is that when the same thing is repeated again and again, we get committed to a certain idea. and alternative thoughts and ideas do not come to us. That is one. Second thing is that one study was recently conducted on the videos uploaded in a month's time on one of these platforms, and it was found that a vast majority, large majority, had negative content in terms of critique, rather than positive content in terms of motivating people to be better persons, better people. So it was this idea that demands that we as teachers are able to impart some values, and it is not giving them the value, but making them aware so that the students can take their own well-informed judgment. This is one very important idea. Second reason, and very important reason, and that is very relevant to India. India is becoming a divided society now. It is getting divided into groups of different stratas of different kind. For example, we have Dalits, OBCs, general category. We have categories on the basis of religion: Muslims, Hindus, Christians, Buddhists. Gender-based divisions are there: men, women. And everywhere, a projection is being made that each group is a victim. Somehow, the emotion of victimhood is getting perpetuated through the social media to a very large extent, as was obvious in this particular study that I quoted just now, in which it was found that vast majority of the uploads were negative in nature rather than positive in terms of bringing about unity amongst the people and appreciating either for the development of all or for the self-development. Now, victimhood is a very, very serious emotion. And it is this victimhood. Now, see how it is serious. Let us look at the social psychology of victimhood as an emotion. The social psychology of victimhood is as follows. If you are a victim, then you go into a defensive mode, that I have to protect myself from continuing as the victim, number one. And it is because of the evolution, the anthropology of our own, the evolutionary psychology of the human beings is such that we always have to defend ourselves. If you see the times when the Homo sapiens for the first time came from the forests and started the beginning of the settled life, what was the primary concern? The primary concern was security. And that security has continued till now. The demand for security that has continued till today. That is, in our seeking security is in our DNA. It has become part of that. It is part of the evolution for our survival and continuation. Security is the single most important thing. And those of you who are aware of the need hierarchy, if you look at the need hierarchy also given by Abraham Maslow way back about 100 years back, at that time, if you look at the basic need, the first basic need is food. And the second need is security. And food and security are considered as the most basic needs of the human being. Now, if a particular individual or a group or a section of society starts feeling victim, then how would it articulate its response to that sense of victimhood? Now, psychologists say, and social psychologists say through studies, that they either have to create the mechanisms through which to prevent and stop that kind of the continuation of the perceived exploitation. The exploitation could be real, unreal, It may be either in the past or present. But the responses from this perceived threat, one must create mechanism to protect oneself. And what is the best and the ultimate defense against this kind of perceived threat? The best is eliminate the threat. That is what the history has been of the human beings since the last 10,000 years, since the time human beings came from forests, from hunter and gatherer, when we became settlers. Since then till now, if you look at the evolutionary psychology and sociology of the evolution of human beings, then you will find that this is the one most important and ultimate defense, that eliminate the threat. And how do you eliminate the threat? One example of eliminating that perceived threat was of Hitler. He decided to eliminate the Jews, that they are a burden. So ultimately, what happens is that this sense of victimhood, when stretched to the limit, will lead to genocide. Now, on one end of the continuum of this defense mechanism is the genocide. And what is at the other end? At the other end of victimhood is depression. So either you go into complete depression and become an obsessive compulsive neurotic personality, confined to yourself, and you inflict pain upon yourself against the perceived threat. Or you start becoming aggressive vis-a-vis other. And in the final analysis against this continuum, depression keeps getting reduced and more aggression starts taking place. And ultimately, if you are able to gather sufficient power, you become a person who will indulge in genocide. So in the root of each genocide is that sense of victimhood and that sense of creating a safe environment for oneself and for one's progeny and future generations. Now, this is actually at present, fortunately, we have democracy. But it is this sense of victimhood that is now coming in different groups because of the explosion of negative information, negative emotion being exposed, and that emotion being exposed repeatedly because of the algorithms of these social media platforms. And very interestingly, please note that these social media platforms do not call us as the customers. They call us users. And there are only two industries, if you allow me to use the word industry, there are only two industries which call their customers as users. One is the drug industry. Drug means narcotic drugs. They call their customers users. And second is this social media industry, which calls its customers as users. And we are in the web of it all. So how to take our students out of this web? That is a very important question in front of us. And that requires that there is a great need for teaching which is value oriented. What kind of value? A value is what? First, let us understand what a value is. Can I ask my participants to speak on this? Dr. Shruti, is it possible that they participate in this?
Yes, sir. You can raise your hands. Anyone?
Raise the hand or I continue.
No, I'm sure this is.
I have. If somebody can please raise the hand, who would like to tell me what the meaning of a value is?
Yes, Sandhya ma'am would like to say.
There is one Karamjit Kaur.
So values.
Yes, Sandhya ma'am.
Miss Sandhya, please.
So values are culturally defined standards, so which we consider to be worthwhile, good, just, proper. and
Just-
members are expected to follow, sir.
Okay, just proper. All right.
Yes.
Very fine. Somebody else, please. Very nice. Nice. Somebody else, please. You can write in the chat box also. Are they permitted to write in the chat box?
Yes, yes, yes.
Can you write in the chat box?
Any way that participants are comfortable.
Uh,
Even if we are getting anything on YouTube.
around 50 people are on in here. Is there somebody? Mrs. Sandhya has
People on YouTube can also please put in the YouTube chat box. We can read out your comments from the chat box.
When we talk of value-oriented teaching, what is value? Mr. Nilesh, you have written a message. Could you please write something? Or it is Achinti Pandey. Could you write something in the chat box? What a value is? Or you can come, raise your hands, please. We will call you in.
We have one reply in the YouTube chat box by Dr. Bahadur Saroj. He's
Yes.
saying that value is a cultural construct.
It is a cultural construct. Okay, good. Cultural.
And then we have some in the chat box here. Dr. Debashri Mukherjee is saying that values are standards of behavior that are regarded as important in life.
Okay.
And Swati ma'am is of
Value
an
is-
opinion. Yeah.
Value,
She's
cultural behavior,
values are standards of behavior that
standard-
are considered important in our life.
standards.
Standards of behavior, behavior standards.
Quality service. Meenu Sharma says quality of service.
Yeah, and Swati ma'am says that values are the traditions that we follow.
Wonderful. Tradition. Actually, we have received right now, 4 responses, if I say.
We have one more by Dr. Merton. He's Merton. He's saying value is congealed social practices.
Social practice.
Yeah.
You see, social practice. Now, I can see that there are following responses have come. General belief about the value is that it is a cultural construct, something related to the culture. It is the standard of behavior. That is, it should be done, should not be done. Traditions. It is quality or service or the social practice. What is expected as a social practice. Now, please see, I would say one thing here. And so, Dr. Sandhya Tamang, will you please repeat once more? What did you say? She's still here. Dr. Sandhya Tamang, will you please repeat? I forgot to write down your point.
So,
What did you say?
values are culturally defined standards,
Culturally defined
which tells us what is good, what is just, what is desirable, what is proper, what is worthwhile,
Wonderful.
and guidelines which members of the society are expected to follow.
Culturally decided
Standard.
standards, right? Good. I would put it in a different way. Basically, we will come to the same idea, but I will like to concretize these very ideas. Culturally decided standards, the standards of behavior, the traditions, quality, social practice, cultural construct. And Dr. Sandhya Tamang also emphasized very specifically what is good, what is bad. Actually, value is something, very simply speaking, value is something on the basis of which we decide what is right, what is wrong. I am just modifying the definition given by Dr. Sandhya Tamang, or the standard of behavior definition given by one of the speakers here. What is right and what is wrong? And what is right and what is wrong is of 2 types. One is contextual, which will be in a certain context, which we call ethics. It will differ from situation to situation. It can differ from person to person also. It can differ from region to region. And the other is something which is not contextual, which is simply eternal. And that is morality. So I will not go into the question of ethics or morality here. I will simply say what is a value. Value is something on the basis of which we decide what is right, what is wrong, what is to be done, and what is not to be done. That is our response. And therefore it becomes part of culture. And what is culture? You know, a sociologist called Van Manen, he says that culture is like a black hole. It covers everything within a society at a given point of time. It covers the customs, the traditions, the practices, the values that is deciding what is right, what is wrong, the roles that the people have, and so on. So this is what actually the value is. Now, point here is, what is the right value, appropriate value? Value will change from context to context, from time to time, right? So I would not pass a judgment. It is up to you to decide what value. But the most important value is only one. And that value is of universal love. And that there is divinity in each individual. Every individual is endowed with what we call extraordinary divine spirit. Divine spirit, if you are a believer in God. If you don't believe in God, then you can simply say it's a very human, creative, there is creative being inside at each individual, and each individual has a right to realize his or her creative potential. And above all, one thing is that universality of love for all. It is not parental love, that you love in the sense that you are giver. No, it is just there. The respect for all beings. That is it. This is the most eternal value which has been accepted in all cultures, and apart from cultures, all religions also, if you want to bring in religion also. So it is not necessary. It is beyond religion, so to say. Now, issue is, how can we do that? How can we bring that about? We can bring that about as teachers with the help of folklore and stories. Okay? And how that can be done, why that can be done, and why should that be done? The reason is that each story has a certain theme. Number one. Number two, each story has characters. Characters which have their own emotions, personality, persona, social station. I repeat, they have their social station. They have their own emotions. They have a certain character or personality makeup. And they have certain actions. So this topology of social station, their emotions, their actions, and their role, the character within them, these provide an opportunity for the students or for the people who are listening to express through them their own deep-rooted emotions, deep-rooted feelings, and their own deep-rooted convictions. I have been using this particular method for training the business executives. And there, when we go to teach the theories, say theories of motivation or leadership theories, particularly these are the two things that are maximum in demand, or teaching the mindsets, there I have found that when we ask the participants to express their feelings about different phenomena, they are always constrained when they have to speak as a person. Nobody wants to reveal one's real self in front of others. But when they are asked to express through a character, or they are asked to interpret a particular character, then they are very open and they share their likes, dislikes, their regrets, their disappointments, their successes, their failures, possibilities of different kind which they would otherwise not discuss, their envies, jealousies, angers, their hatred for something. These things come out very openly. The emotions like anger, hatred, jealousy, envy, and desire to eliminate others, their victimhood. These are the emotions we never open publicly about. But when we are discussing these very emotions through the stories, and these emotions as the emotions of the character, and we ask the participants to participate in it, then they very openly, clearly, and vocally come out with their own ideas. And at the same time, when we are guiding the discussion, of when we are trying to say close the discussion, so to say, or when we are opening the discussion or directing the discussion, then we can give them leads for managing those negative emotions of those people. I have found this very successful, dear friends. I wish that we could do this in physical form. If you were there in a physical form here, and then we would have started discussing certain things, and with open discussion, what I do is that in the previous induction programs also, we would divide the whole group into different parts, different groups, subgroups. Each subgroup will be given a story or an activity. They will conduct the activity. And after that, whatever are their feelings while conducting that particular activity, they will be asked to share with the entire group. And then eventually, at the end, we will arrive at a consensus. We will address the emotions of each individual right in the classroom in that setting. That unfortunately is not possible here. So you will have to rely only on my words over here. What I'm trying to say is this, and let me repeat a little. The people, when they are reading the story or when you are discussing the story, then their own personal, cultural personality, psychological personality, sociological personality gets manifested through their analysis, description, and explanation of the emotions of the characters, actions of the characters. When they interpret the actions of the character, when they're asked to interpret the emotions of the character, and when they are asked to interpret the social station, when they are asked to interpret the value system that is guiding their behavior, they come out with their interpretation, and their interpretation actually is their true feelings. And when we know their true feelings, we can give them alternate feelings also, so that they can think and they can come out the trap of conditioning on their own, and they are able to become the better human beings, better individuals. This is it. So, point now is, dear friends, how can we go about doing it? How do we do it? Now, here for this purpose, my dear friends, I have selected a short story by Premchand. This story was written in the year 1933. Please, dear listeners, please pay attention to this. This story was written way back in the year 1933, when this country was, number one, not independent. It is how many years? About 88 years old story. It was published in Hindi language, and it has been translated by one of the former professors of this very college, which is organizing this faculty induction program, that is Ramanujan College. Professor T.C. Ghai has translated it in his book on Premchand. I have taken that story from there, and we shall go through that story, and we shall see what aspects we can discuss. Now, please see, before I proceed, a few points about using the story for value-oriented teaching. Number one, each story we all know, I need not tell you about it, but I'm just reminding you, you all are intellectuals. You are well-read people, I'm assuming. And first thing is that there is a theme. I did not say anything about it. Yes, there is a theme. My concern is not with that as a teacher when I am using the story as a part of my pedagogy, as a part of my value-oriented teaching. There are certain aspects that I would like to focus on. Number one, I will focus on the facts, the societal facts. Each story has societal facts. What do I mean by societal facts, and why am I saying that it is a fact? Fact means a truth, unchallengeable truth. You see, literature is the mirror of society. This is what was stated by Pandit Mahavir Prasad Dwivedi, who was an essayist of Hindi language. It is a mirror. So in that mirror, there are certain societal facts which are mentioned, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. This is one aspect. Second aspect is the social stations and the social roles that are associated with those social stations of the characters. That is second aspect that we have to discuss. Now, it is very different from the way the English language teacher or a Hindi language teacher will teach the subject in the classroom. The character is discussed and described even by the English language teachers, English or Hindi or Sanskrit or Tamil or whatever. They also discuss the thing, but their focus is essentially on the language and the narrative. Our focus is not on the narrative. Our focus is on what is behind the narrative, what is causing the evolution of that narrative. It is not what is stated. Our focus is on what is not stated, and we have to bring that out. So social status, so I said, first is the fact, societal facts. Second, I stated the social stations of the characters and their role. It is from here, it is that role and societal, as I say, social station and social role, that would manifest, that would help us capture the cultural milieu, as you call it. The cultural values will emerge out of that. And number three, we have to look at the causal variables for the behavior. Causal factors for the social roles that have been assigned. Causal factors. Here we have to look at what could possibly be the psychological factors, social factors, and here the responsibility of us teachers becomes a little more, my dear friends. More in the sense, and particularly it is more for us. I'm a person with commerce background. I'm teaching subjects like commerce and economics, commerce and management. And I am just like the teachers of mathematics, teachers of sciences of different kind, or computer science for that matter, because cultural dimensions are not part of my curriculum. So I have to work on studying various aspects of the socio-psychological dimensions of the working of the society and gather studies for it. And this will come not out of my love for the curriculum and not out of the love for the salary that I get, but it will have to come out of my love for the students, that I want them to develop that kind of critical thinking about the direction in which the society is moving, and just showing them the direction and not trying to indoctrinate. That is very important. So three things I have stated. One, identifying the social facts, identifying the social stations and therefore social roles, and thirdly, the causal factors that could be there. And if in teaching, we could somehow bring out some research studies which support it. If we do that, then we can begin. Now I have chosen this story called the Immaculate Child. I would like to just make a short analysis of this for you. It's a short story of about how many words? About 2,000 words or so. It's not very long. But it was written in the year 1933, and it is about the status of women in the society and response of men towards a woman, towards the women of the society in general. The categorization, etc. What is that? And the reason for this is that I believe, and the facts also say that the status of women in the world is not high. For example, recently a report of the Crime Bureau has come, which was Crime Bureau report of England and Wales has come out. And it has said that in 12 months preceding March 2020, 1.6 million crimes took place, 1.6 million incidents of reported domestic violence took place in England and Wales. It's a developed society, the most developed society, as the British claim, because they are the ones who claim to have given democracy to the world. They claim to be the former rulers of the world. And we remember the famous adage or famous claim that sun never set in the British Empire. They claim themselves to be the most evolved beings of all human beings, the role models for the Homo sapiens. And there in that society, in 12 months preceding March 2020, 1.6 million cases of domestic violence took place. It's a massive number. It is happening in the most advanced society of the world, claimed to be most advanced. 2, within the same period, more than 83,000 cases of crimes against women took place in that society. I've taken that. And it is because of this. And yes, understand one more thing, as far as women are concerned. Women do not have a private space for themselves. What do I mean by private space? A social experiment was conducted. In that social experiment, females from the age range of 6 years up to 86 years were made to sit alone in a park. And it was noticed how many passers-by would look at them or would glance them with a glance which is more than a casual glance. Look at them with a glance which is more than a casual glance. Casual glance means you look and then you get busy with your own thinking. Non-casual glances, as you keep watching for a longer time than usual. This timing was noted for the glance at these women sitting lonely in a park, women of the ranging from 6 years to 86 years. Then the same thing was repeated in case of men. Boys of 6 years, right up to men of 86 years, they were made to sit in the park alone. The thing was, hardly any man received a glance which was more than a casual glance, whereas each woman received the glances more than the casual glances. Statistically, it was more significant at 1% level of significance. So I think the conclusion of the researchers was that women do not have a private space to themselves. So this is why. This is most important. So let us come to the story. And I would like to take the permission from you, ma'am, to share the
So you have the permission, you can share it.
do that. Before I do that, let me narrate the story.
Okay.
There are, my dear friends, three parts to this story. The story is this. There is a person who is a rich man. He is rich enough in the year 1933 or year around that to be able to afford about 3 servants. He's a lonely person working in it. And he has a servant named Gangu. And this person is a Brahmin. This is specifically mentioned there. His caste is mentioned. And Gangu does not say namaste to him. Actually, the employer feels that Gangu does not say namaste to him. He does not wish him. Gangu expects him to go and touch his feet because he's a Brahmin. He feels that in his mind. And this fellow, the employer, he does not encourage people to come and meet him when he's free. Because he says that these people always come to me whenever they need some extra money advance, and I do not want to give them advance salary. And also, I do not want that these people come and do the flattery to me and they start backbiting the other servants. One day, this Brahmin servant, Gangu, comes to him, stands in front of him and says, "Sir, I want to resign. I want to leave a job." So he says, why do you want to leave the job? So he says, in my mohalla, in my street, our street, there is a say what you can say, an ashram for the destitute women. And from there, one lady called Gomti Devi is being asked to leave, and I want to marry her. This fellow says, the employer says, you want to get married, uses the word whore. You want to marry that whore? She was married by these officials of this destitute house, this ashram, 3 times, and each of the 3 times she left them and came back. You want to marry that slut? So he says, no, sir, there are wrong stories about her. And every time, his statement was that a woman wants love and nothing else. She wasn't loved. The 3 men she was married to, each of them was actually behaving with her as if they were doing a favor to her. And therefore, those people did not give love to her, instead abused her, did not give her the due respect she wanted, and therefore she was actually thrown out. It was not that she came back. She was thrown out by the men. And she has come back, and I love her. So I would like to marry her. This is first part. He resigns. In the second part of the story goes like this. He says, this employer, this man starts he becomes a hawker and starts selling small things on a cart and is able to make a very small amount of money. And since he used to park his cart somewhere nearby from where the employer used to walk by, so he would often ask him, how are you doing? And he would always say, I'm very fine, sir. I'm very happy. My wife is also very happy. And we are able to do everything very fine. Done. Then after some time, Gangu, this man, comes to him and says that my wife has run away. So the employer says that I inside felt rejoiced that he deserved it. What kind of a woman she had married. And he felt deep satisfaction inside him that this fellow deserved it. He married a wrong woman and she had to go away. She has run away. And he then says to him, this had to happen. But Gangu says, no, sir. It cannot be because of this. I was so good to her. She was so good to me. And I really loved her. I think there was something wrong with me. Perhaps there was some fault in my love that she goes away. Very interesting. And he defends her. Part of the story over. Third part. This man, Gangu, comes back after some time to the same employer. And he meets him, and he has a baby in his hand. So he says, "This is my child." He said, "What? How could it be your child?" He said, "I was able to locate this lady, my wife. She had gone to Lucknow. And I came to know of this from one of her friends. And the moment I came to know of this, I went to Lucknow and I asked her, 'Why have you come?' So she said to me that after I marrying you, I discovered that I was pregnant. And since there were only 6 months to the marriage, the child had come only 6 months after the marriage. So I did not want you to undergo the ignominy of owning a child who is not yours. So I came away from there." So this employer then makes his own reaction saying, "How could you own this child?" So this fellow says that, "What happened, sir? Maybe the seeds are sown by somebody else, but let the harvest be taken by somebody else. How does it matter?" So I'm very fine with it. As long as there is love between us, it is fine. This is the story, my dear friends. Now, how this story can be used in the classroom in terms of creating the 4 things that I've said: societal facts, 2, social stations, social roles, and the causal factors behind the behavior of the characters. There are only 2 characters, technically speaking, or maybe 3 characters, the lady. But there is only description about the lady. That's it, nothing else. There are perceptions only about them. And what kind of assignments we can create while teaching the while undertaking the value-oriented pedagogy. So allow me, Dr. Shruti, to share the.
Sir, you can share your screen.
The audience are.
We have 53 people among us. And I'm sure the ones who are on YouTube will also be able to see the shared screen.
So can I share the screen now, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think.
Yes. So this is the story, my dear friends.
Yeah, we can see the story.
So this runs into, as you can see, about 9 short pages. These are pages of about maybe not more than 200 words are there. I'll quickly go through them. I've underlined certain points. Now, first point is Gangu is a Brahmin. This is a societal fact of that time. And behaves like one. And what he says, he's short-tempered. Watch here. He's short-tempered and can't stand any criticism. He hardly has any friends. This is his nature. Then he comes to this. The role now, here it is the societal role of a Brahmin. What Brahmin used to think, maybe. This is the reflection. And that is, he is totally illiterate. Even then, he is a Brahmin and expects other to reverence and serve him. But why shouldn't he? See what the author says. When people are holding on to the wealth inherited from their ancestors, under the belief that they themselves have created the wealth, why should he give up the privilege and status bequeathed to him by his ancestors? This is his birthright. Very interesting. So, should he be condemned for his belief that has come from his family or the social station? This can be a point of discussion. This can be a point of discussion. Has this role since 1933 till now, has this changed? If this has not changed, why? And I would say, here at this particular point, I might like to give them an assignment. The Brahmins are portrayed here as illiterate but arrogant. But they have birthright to this. Because if people have a right to wealth, they should have a right to wealth. Brahmins have been social reformers also. Sahasrabuddhe was a Brahmin who was the closest aide of our dear Ambedkar, Bhimrao Ambedkar. And I might give an assignment, find out about the social reformers who have been Brahmins and how they have helped change. This is a direction for, again, as I said, inclusivity, victimhood, the anger directed towards a particular community or not directed towards a community, how we'll handle it. There'll be many other stories in which we can take up the different roles, but I'm only talking about this particular story. This assignment can be given, my dear friends. Proceed. By nature, I'm reserved with my servant. I don't like them to come to me unless I ask them for the task. And he says very clearly, these people come to me either to ask for an advance or to complain about one of their companions. And I dislike this. Clear. I pay everyone on the first of the month. And whenever someone comes to ask for an advance, I get worked up. I don't like keeping account of small amounts. And then if someone has got his full wages for a month, he has no business to fritter it away in 15 days and then come and ask for an advance or a loan. Maybe you can talk of this value also. Here, an economy is being perpetuated today. You borrow, live today, pay later. Is it appropriate? Everybody is asked to, credit cards are being sold to everyone. Should we live like that? Should we not live like that? This actually can be something which is applicable to we grown-ups also, the teachers also and the grown-ups also. So this is something, can you create an assignment on this? What is the interest rate that is charged by the credit card companies when there is a default? Just prepare a list. Make them aware of this. Rate of interest goes to as high as 43% to 60% per annum. Nobody will discuss it. Nobody will tell them, but here is an opportunity for us to teach them this particular aspect. Now, this part of the story simply says one thing, that he wanted, I was amazed to see a look of politeness, supplication, and even unease on his proud face. And in irritation, I said, what's wrong? Why don't you say something? It's time for me to go for a walk. I'm getting late. Gangu replied in a dejected tone, all right, you go for a walk, I'll come later. This was still worrisome. Now, knowing that I don't have much time, he would quickly blurt out all out in one outburst. This was the expectation. Description of the character. Emotion. That Gangu would burst out. All right. But have you come to ask for an advance? I don't give advances. No, Sarkar, I have never asked for an advance. Then you have come to complain against someone. I don't like to listen to complaints. No, Sarkar, I have never complained against anyone. Gangu now looked determined. He spoke in an unsteady voice. Relieve me of my duties, sir. Now he is thrown the bombshell. Now please see what he says. Now let's come to the relevant part here right away. He says, very politely, Gangu said, the truth is that the woman who has been recently expelled from widow's ashram, the same Gomti Devi. Now Gomti Devi was well known. Even before you can read here, even before the sentence is completed, the protagonist is interjecting and saying, yes, she has been expelled. So what? What has that to do with your job? It was as if Gangu had unloaded a heavy burden from his head. And he said, I want to marry her, Babuji. I want to marry her. Now, here is an important thing. Now the description. This illiterate Orthodox Brahmin, untouched by new ideas, backward, is going to marry that shameless whore. whom no one would even let into their house. Gomti had caused a stir in the peaceful atmosphere of the mohalla, the street. The officials of the ashram had married her off 3 times, and each time she had left her husband and returned after a few weeks for a month. So much so that the secretary of the ashram had this time expelled her. And now she lived in a small room in the mohalla and become a, look at that, what she had become. She had become a source of pleasure for the mohalla's bad characters. That is gossip. And bad characters would be talking about her. And she is described as shameless whore. Nobody would let her enter the house. And this man wants to marry. I was angered at Gangu's simplicity, but I also pitied him. Now please see, pitied him. This ass could find no other women except this one to marry. When she had forsaken 3 men, how did he expect her to stay with him? Value judgments. Straight away. On the basis of knowing 3 husbands means a bad woman. Divorcee is a bad person. Right away. Nothing thinks. She's a slut. She's a whore. She's a source of entertainment. She's a source of gossip. Is that correct? We can have discussion now here in the classroom. Is it correct? If the social station of a person is that of a divorcee, and the social station of a person is of a rich person, elite, so-called unblemished, do they have a right to call her the shameless whore? To call her someone who he would not let her even enter the house? Is it appropriate? What kind of women should invite this kind of a thing? What kind of women? What kind of discussions? Important point. What kind of discussions among men or women take place where they would describe women as a shameless whore? Very important. And right away, see the judgment. When she had forsaken 3 men, see the sentence. When she had forsaken 3 men. The word is forsaken. As if she was responsible for this right away. Divorcee. She has divorced. It is like forsaking. In the modern context, a divorcee. For example, or a single woman, maybe a relationship, a woman in 2 relationships. Man in relationship, let us discuss that. It was a matter of pride to have mistresses. People could have more than one wife at some stage. That was very common. Nobody talked about that, and that was the time when rich people used to have mistresses, 2 wives, 3 wives, one legal and others illegal. There at that time, the statement is being made. How correct it is? We can lead the discussion basis of this. All right. Now please see. Again, the conclusion about the same woman. Inferences. Had he been a man of money, she might have stayed with him for 6 months or a year. Gangu is stark blind. Stark blind. Judgment passed. She won't stay with him even for a week. Judgment passed. A social judgment passed. Okay. I asked him in a tone of clear warning, do you know the history of this woman? Now see the description of Gangu. Very interesting. Gangu spoke as if he had been an eyewitness. These are all lies. People have maligned her for nothing. What do you mean? Hasn't she felt 3 men? Hasn't she left 3 men? They drove her out, sir. What could she do? You fool. Does anyone come from so far, spend thousands of rupees, just to drive away the woman he has married? Gangu, charged with emotion, replied, Huzur, no woman can stay where there is no love. A woman doesn't need just food and clothing. She needs love too. They must have thought, this is the assumption, they must have thought they had done a widow a great favor by marrying her. They must have expected her to surrender to them body and soul. They must have expected her to surrender to them body and soul. But to do that, one must first surrender oneself. See, the expectation of Gangu. If you are expecting your woman to surrender to you, he is saying, and see, the story is of the year 1903. One has to surrender oneself, Huzur. That is, moreover, she is suffering from a sickness. She is sometimes possessed by a spirit. And then she starts talking nonsense and falls unconscious, which means maybe she was suffering from some kind of psychological problem. Maybe schizophrenia. And you will marry such a woman? I asked, shaking my head in disbelief. Take it from me, you will reap a bitter harvest. Judgment passed. That is, appeal is not working. It is a social change. Point of social change here. Attitudinal change. Cultural attitudinal change. Why cultural attitudinal changes do not take place? Why cultural attitudinal changes are so slow to take place? We can lead a discussion into that direction with the help of this. And for this, we have to come prepared in the class with a lot of other case studies and a lot of research studies regarding the social change. How that is brought about. What are the roles that can be done? Like, for example, in India, education has played a very important role. And with the rise in education, divorce rates have increased. Let's have a discussion. But women's right, labeling a woman, is it correct? Can we put that? Let this be open to discussion. Let them make up their own mind. We don't have to indoctrinate them. Now, after this, now look at the judgment he makes. Gangu, like a man hungry from deprivation, is leaping for a piece of bread, unmindful that it is a leftover, dry and unfit to eat. I thought it right to keep him out. Look at this judgment. If a person is marrying a woman of that type is described by the writer. Gangu is described as a hungry man from deprivation, like as if he's a sex-hungry person, and leaping for a piece of bread, unmindful that it is leftover. Look at the description. A woman is being compared with leftover food by the character. Leftover food, dry and unfit to eat. And he's marrying her hungry from deprivation. Huge things we can do here in the class. Third part, 5 months went by. Gangu had married Gomti and lived in a tiled roof shack in the same mohalla. Now this goes on. Now come to the main point. One day I heard that Gomti had deserted Gangu and run away. That's part of the story. I don't know why, but I derived strange pleasure. You know, मैंने तो कहा था ना, I told you this is going to happen. Same thing has happened. I had become envious of Gangu's life of well-being and contentment, and was waiting for some unhappy, waiting for some unhappy, disastrous or shameful end to it. See, I was waiting. Hona hai. That is, you are seeking, if there is a change, if there is a challenge to your value system, challenge to your belief, challenge to your conviction, however stupid that may be, right or wrong, but you wait for it to be correct. In my classroom, I would say, can you recall this kind of incident where you have seen somebody waiting for something unpleasant to happen because the conviction has not turned out correct or conviction has been challenged? Some examples will come wonderful. This news gratified my envy. How beautiful. It goes to the credit of the writer. And that is why, Premchand is one of the very respected writers. He lifted fiction in these languages, in Urdu as well as Hindi, from what we call quagmire of romantic chronicles. Earlier, these were just a quagmire of what we will call the romantic chronicles. The literature of Hindi and Urdu was only in that genre, and it brought it at par with the European fiction. That goes to the credit of Premchand. So let's come back to the story. After all, the very thing I had expected had happened. Kitna maza aaya usko. After all, the very thing I had expected, this happened. Okay. Now he describes those emotions. Now, the same day, very important part, same day I happened to meet Gangu in the market. He was shaken, he was confused, completely lost to himself. Tears welled up in his eyes the moment he saw me, but not out of shame. Please note it. But not out of shame, out of pain. Look at the emotion. The societal fact is that a wife denounced by a person had deserted, so-called deserted, according to that person, but the person is crying. Tears have welled up, but not out of pain, but not out of shame, but out of pain. Babuji, Gomti deceived me too. Hiding my malicious pleasure under an outward show of sympathy, I said, I had warned you of this, and you did not listen. Now have patience. There is nothing else you can do. Has she cleaned out or left something behind? Which means, has she taken away all your wealth? Has she run away with your wealth? Whatever little wealth you had? Gangu touched his heart. Look at the mind. The character of the person is described by these words. Touched his heart with his hands. Oh, Babuji, don't say this. She took away nothing. In fact, she left behind whatever she had. I don't know what my fault was. Now look at the description. Maybe I was not good enough for her. Now the person is not passing judgment. She deceived me. Earlier he says, Babuji, Gomti deceived me. But he says, maybe I was not good enough for her. She was literate. I was unlettered. It was enough that she stayed with me for so long. Had she stayed with me a little longer, I would have become a good person. What should I tell you about her? I don't know what she was for others, but for me, she was like a God's blessing. See the locus of description of the incident. The character is describing, not blaming her, blaming himself. The locus, the cause of the incident is in him. How usual it is for men to take the blame upon themselves. In any relationship, whether it is brother, sister, mother, son, husband, wife. How many times does it happen in women? I would like to lead my discussion in the classroom with this. I don't know where I had faulted. I don't know where I had faulted. I swear, I never saw a trace of resentment on her face. I am nobody, Babuji. I earn no more than 12 annas. But this is about a rupee. 16 annas used to be 1 rupee at that time, and one could lead a very comfortable life in about half rupee those days, in a month. But she was so good at housekeeping that I never felt the shortage of anything. I was acutely disappointed at what he said. Look at this. I was acutely disappointed at what he said, because the writer was expecting, in this biographical account of, in this story, biographical form of story, the author was expecting that Gangu will join him in denouncing this woman. But instead of denouncing, he's praising her and taking the blame upon himself. So I began to ridicule him. So she hasn't carried anything with her, nothing at all, Babuji, not a pie, and she loved you very much. How should I convince you, Babuji, that love I shall never forget till my life? And even then she deserted you. That's what surprises me, Babuji. Now see, please, notice this word. That is what surprises me, Babuji. Very important. And this becomes manifest later in the story. After this, let us come to the last part of the story. Just after this meeting, I had to go to Nainital for some work, not for pleasure. I returned after a month. Now see, the story takes a different turn. And here it is, remember this. That's what surprises me, Babuji. I'm surprised that she left me. She was so loving, I was so loving. She still left. She was so good as a housewife. She could manage in a small amount, the whole household, but still she left. Perhaps I was illiterate. She was lettered. She was educated. I don't know, but that surprised her. Okay, come back. I said, tell me, great man. After that, I returned after a month. Tell me, great man, did you get some news of Gomti Devi? You had gone away to trace her? Gangu burst out. Yes, Babuji, with your blessings, I have brought her back. She was found in a hospital in Lucknow. She had confided her whereabouts to one of her female friends. The moment I came to know, I rushed to Lucknow and dragged her back. And I got this baby over and above. His prized possession was not only the return of Gomti, his wife, but also the baby. He lifted the baby and brought it in full view of me, like a sportsman proudly displaying his medal. I remarked mockingly, very fine. You got this boy? Perhaps that's why she had run away. Is he your son? Why, Babuji? Now look at the answer. Is he your son? Why, Babuji? Why mine, Babuji? He's yours, God's. Was he born in Lucknow? Yes, Babuji. He's just a month old. How long have you been married? Sir, this is 7th month. So he was born in 6th month of your marriage. What else? And even then it is yours. Yes, you're talking nonsense, damn it. How could he be your son? You have been married for 6 months. A child is born to you who is now 1 month old in 7th month. How could it be yours? I am not sure whether he understood what I was trying to say, but he replied out of plain innocence. Babuji, she nearly died giving him birth. She has got a new life. She struggled between life and death for 3 days and 3 nights. I taunted him. This is the first time he heard that a baby can be born after 6 months of marriage. The arrow had hit the bullseye. He smiled and said, oh, it's that. I didn't even think of it. Please see. Remarkable. I didn't even think of it. That's why Gomti had run away. He continued. I said, Gomti, if you don't like me, you can leave me. I shall go away and never trouble you again. If you ever need my help, write to me. I shall do everything I can. I shall do everything I can. I have no resentment against you. In my eyes, you are still as good as you were before. I love you as before. No, Now I love you even more. And if you have not turned away from me, then come with me. Gangu would never be unfaithful to you. I married you not because you are a goddess, but because I love you. And I believed you also love me. Mark the words. Gangu would never be unfaithful to you. I married you not because you are goddess, but because I loved you and I believe you also love me. This child is my child, my own child. Look at the emphasis. I took a sown field. Should I then disown the harvest just because someone else had sown it? Very important. I took a sown field. I took a field where seed had already been planted. So should I disown the harvest just because someone else had put the seed in it? And saying this, Gangu, look at the remark, Gangu burst out into a loud laughter. It's neither irony. He's not talking of irony. He is laughing at us. He didn't even think of it. Remember this, he didn't think of it. And surprised, as I said earlier. That is what surprises me, that she left and why she would have left. Now here, perception of men about the women can be discussed. This is what the role of this story. And so whatever, however, the story, I embraced the baby and walked alongside Gangu. That is the end of the story. That means the person changed his opinion completely. That is the end of the story. Please notice. The veneer, now the author describes himself in the end, the veneer of goodness was gone. Today, I spoke to him with a heart full of devotion. No, why should she come to meet a black-hearted person like me? Come, take me to her. You say I am a good person? No, I am good only from outside, but very mean from inside. It is you who is truly good, and this baby is a flower that radiates the fragrance of your goodness. I embraced the baby and walked alongside Gangu. This is the story. So assignments I have told you. So role of Brahmins, how Brahmins have brought about social change, that assignment could be given. The stereotypes about the women, what are the reasons why, how they can be changed, how can that change come about, what role we can play in this regard. We can discuss about live-in relationships, sanctity of man-woman relationships, the equality in it, inequality in it. Those are the values that we can impart with the help of this. So this is what, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to say. With the help of this example, how we can do it. We have, UGC says, 3 hours per week for mentorship are to be given. We can utilize these hours for these value-oriented teaching and discussions. And maybe in some way, we can give an appropriate direction so that victimhood should not come. Respect for all shades and colors, inclusivity and universal love, those are accepted. Not passing judgment, not seeking validation. If that can be done by us, so that will not only make our own students better persons, but also it can, I hope, think and believe, it can make us also better human beings. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I will be willing to take them.
Yes, so there are 2 questions.
Yes.
And in meanwhile, people can post their questions in chat box or raise their hand. These are the questions that were on YouTube. The first is, as well, value education for college students isn't part of their curriculum. and not even have an assessment component, most students may not be interested in it. How can we address this issue?
It depends on you, sir. I've been doing it. I've been doing it for years. I take out an opportunity to discuss it with my students. Some of them become more interested because it is not part of the curriculum. Some may not, but all of them remember these discussions even after 10 years of passing the class. So it is up to you how you are able to create a context during the mentoring hours and even during the classroom. I'm able to create that context. That is up to you how you create it. While teaching, I have been teaching subjects like quantitative statistics. There is statistics I have been teaching. And within that, and finance I have been teaching. And in these classes, which are completely mathematical, numerical subjects, where there is no scope for such discussions, I have found opportunity in class after class and doing it. And many students have been assigned the tasks. I have given them books to read, and they have read those books, and come back and have discussions with them. And I feel at that time, if there is a class of 40 I am addressing, even if 5 students I am able to touch deeply and give them some direction of their own choice without indoctrinating them. If I can give them critical thinking, if I can give them a view of universal love and respect for all categories, a sensitive heart which talks of respect to all, a person who is willing to sit with those with whom normally we would not sit and talk. If we can create even one student per year, it is enough. I'm sorry, it is enough.
Right. So the second question is in the chat box itself. It's by Shikha Chauhan ma'am. And she is asking that I would like to know that how to address the questions regarding values like patriotism. She's more interested to know this because she's a teacher of political science, and the debates are extremely intriguing regarding this patriotic issue, the feeling, the value of patriotism.
In the last, more particular in the last decade or so, the discussion between, the left ideology and right ideology, there is no common ground between the two, and there is a complete breakdown of the conversation between them. We have to discover a middle ground. Patriotism is most important. There is no doubt about it. And as a political science teacher, you would know, when we talk of the breaking the borders, it is very easy to talk of the utopian world where there are no borders. I cannot disown my government. I need a government. Government is needed for maintaining law and order. Otherwise, if you say remove the government of a particular area, it means that we are talking of giving sword in the hand of each person and settling their scores with the help of that, without providing an alternative. So nationhood has to be an important thing. A person who cannot be of one's own nation cannot be of the whole globe also. But and when you talk of patriotism, some sane books have come which we can utilize. Very recently, a book has come by I'll just tell you this in a moment. Yes, this is a book Hindu Civilization, The Great Hindu Civilization by Pavan Verma. He was earlier an MP of JDU also. There is Janata Dal U, and he's a former diplomat. I've gone through this book. It is a fantastic book. And he takes on Amartya Sen, Romila Thapar and Bendy, etc. These people very well, and opens a new dialogue on that. And why we should be patriotic. Very necessary. If we are not patriotic, you will be simply bulldozed. For example, what right Britain has or what right these countries have not to recognize the vaccines manufactured in India. What right, what superior right do they have? India has done well now. If the government was not very patriotic, any government for that, they would have acquiesced to the ban imposition by the British and would not have retaliated with the same equal measure. We feel proud as Indians now that we can stand up to those people who still suffer from the same colonial mentality, that they can trample over 135 crore people with their single diktat, that they would not recognize our vaccines. All right, you don't recognize, we will also not recognize. So this kind of a pride in ourselves is very important. China, for example, what did they do in Galwan? They did the same thing in the year 1967. Unfortunately, what Indians did in 1967 has not been brought into the history books. I do not know why it was kept away from history books. But China was slapped again and again by the Indian forces in 1967. And they were punished very severely, the Chinese. But at that time, Mao Zedong was at the peak of his power. At that time, Indian army did it. And one of the lieutenant generals refused to withdraw the teams at the armed forces from I think it was Nathula. Yes, it was Nathula. He refused to bring them back. He said, no, I will not surrender this territory to the Chinese. You can court-martial me. Isliye did it. And like this, there were several points at which we did not accede to the Chinese pressure. And that was the patriotism that was displayed by us way back in the year 1967. Nobody knows about it, unfortunately. It should be there. That patriotism should be applauded. Nobody talks about Raja Suheldev Pasi. It was the year 1032 Battle of Bahraich took place, when the forces which were left by Mahmud Ghaznavi, his commander's force, he had left about a garrison of 1 lakh soldiers. Each one of those soldiers was killed by the army of Indian kings. 7 Indian kings were brought under single flag by Raja Suheldev Pasi. And each one of them was killed. And as a result of that, I'm just describing this. This battle took place somewhere, I think, on 20th June of 1032. And on 21st June, Raja Suheldev himself beheaded by his own hand at 4 p.m. in the evening the commander of the garrison left by Mahmud Ghaznavi here, the commander of that force. And result was that for another 150 years, not a single invasion took place in India. We should talk about that. We are only talking about Akbar the Great, but nobody talks about Raja Ram Singh's attack on Akbar's forces, the Ahom king, and the defeat that Akbar's forces suffered at his hands. Nobody talks about that. We are talking about the fact that no Asian force could defeat and the European forces for over 100 years' time. But there is no mention of the Martand Varma's defeat, Martand Varma's victory over the Dutch forces. In fact, Martand Varma, who was king in Kerala, if he had not defeated the Dutch East India Company's attack, then in India, it would not have been the East India Company, it would have been the Dutch East India Company. Dutch East India Company got completely demolished because of the damages inflicted by Raja Martand Varma's forces. But unfortunately, there is absolutely no discussion about that here in our textbooks. So patriotism, that pride of an Indian, I remember in the year when I was a student, one teacher of mine, it was 74 to 77 period, one teacher of mine portrayed us Indians in such a manner that they put a question, what is good about India that you can talk of in the last 2000 years, except Mahatma Gandhi's Satyagraha and the music? I still remember that question. And unfortunately, none of us had any answers to give. So much low was the esteem of us Indians at that time. Because we were never told about taking pride in anything. And what do you take pride in? The first thing that you take pride in is your family, your parents, your family roots. Then it goes to your clan. From clan, it goes to your society. From society, it goes to the nation. Why was it not created? And why should we not create it now? We must, whatever is the opportunity. That is what my answer is. No offense meant to anybody for this.
Thank you, sir. Kind of almost on the same lines, we had another question about humanity also. Like,
complete,
yeah.
ma'am, before I complete.
Yes, yes.
What is the most important thing in life? Apart from spiritual ascendancy, in the material world, most important thing is that we are able to lead a comfortable life. If not the luxuries, we should have comforts of life. Economy is the single most important factor. Marx used to say, history is determined by economics. I fully agree with it. Economics is a very important aspect. One of the most important aspects of life is economics. All right. And when does an economy flourish? Economy flourishes when there is no war. And when is there no war? War does not take place when you are strong. If you are weak, war will take place. In 1962, there was Chinese aggression without any provocation. Every so-called peaceful king was decimated. Look at the history. Even if they did not aggress, there are always others to aggress you. You have to be strong. And when you are strong, you have to have a strong army. To have a strong army, you do not merely need an equipment. More than that, you need an emotion. And what is the emotion apart from strategy? Emotion is of patriotism. Janani janmabhumischa swargadapi gariyasi. Mother and motherland are greater than heaven. That is the emotion. So that patriotism is very much required if economy has to flourish. Economy can flourish when your borders are safe, when there is peace, when there is law and order. So there has to be social order as well as military order. So those two things have to be there. And both of those can survive when you have patriotism. And patriotism, unfortunately, as some people say, is the last refuge of a scoundrel. No, it is not. Patriotism is needed to protect your motherland, to protect yourself. Otherwise, your economy will never flourish. That's it.
Thank you, sir. I think you have kind of answered this question. This is by Dr. Abu Tahir. He's asking that nowadays there is no humanity. What about your opinion, sir?
No, I disagree. There is no humanity. There is so much humanity. If 90% people are not good, society will crash. Yes, 10% aberrations will always be there. If you have faith in humanity, in your goodness, your own goodness and the goodness of the people around you, it is there. I think it is a very negative thought that there is no humanity. It is a perceptual world we live in, and we can create a perception of any kind. And this comes out of the feeling of victimhood. When we say there is no humanity, there is a victim inside us which is crying out for this. Please, you need to reflect. There is so much goodness around us. If that had not been there, the society would have crashed, or any society would have crashed completely. Aberrations are there, no doubt. There are aberrations, but that is not the rule of the day. That's it. It is only tail of the normal curve. In the normal curve, mean plus minus 3 standard deviations. It is normal.
So your example brings us to a very interesting question. What is the role of value in quantitative research?
Do not cook numbers. That is the only reply I can.
Okay. One last question.
Don't cook your data. Yes.
Yeah, right. One last question, sir. Can be values perpetuated in the difference in language? Like here we have Adivasi and very less exposure to the outside world and its intricacies. They're very simple and human. Even can expression play the role? Like I think what this the question is trying to ask is, one, the difference of language. A difference in language can cause difference in values perpetuated, and maybe then to address that difference, can expression play a role? Dr. Swati ma'am, you're here. Let me know if I have not been able to interpret your question rightly to sir.
Can she be brought in here to discuss?
Yeah, I think ma'am. Shipra, can we unmute ma'am? Ma'am is here.
Yes. She'll have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. So ma'am
I
can
have given her
ask
the
the question.
permission. She has, I think, written in the chat box that it's clear.
Can she come in? Can you come, Ms. Swati?
Yes, it is clear, sir. The question is asked in the right manner.
No, question is, thing is that it depends upon you how you handle this there in the class. If you say that my students are such who are not exposed much to outside, then you can show them videos, maybe.
Yeah.
And you can focus on their, actually the people you say are Adivasi, then those people have their own very rich traditions.
Yes.
They have their own very rich and strong value system, which suits their way of living. So you can actually create stories for the purposes of reinforcing what their value system is and how they can really evolve and develop into better human beings.
Yes, sir.
That is what you can do. We'll have to work a little harder for this.
Yes, sir.
Because this will be a role that you will have to play is that of a passionate role of a very passionate teacher. How you can bring that about. And I can give you recommend a book to you. The title
Yes,
is Marwa Collins Way. MARWA
Okay.
COLINS. Marwa Collins Way. You can get it through this thing, Amazon.
Okay, sir.
She's a very passionate teacher, and she writes her experiences. She has worked in black neighborhood. She's a black herself, and she has written her experiences of creating a school in a black neighborhood, and she started her work somewhere in 1974. And what all she did while working over there, and how she motivated the students, and how she taught the students who had been labeled by the psychologists as unteachable, retards, delinquents, unmanageable, unsocial, asocial, sociopaths. Such students she was able to teach following that particular method. So I would very strongly recommend that you go through that book.
Yes, sir.
And this sense of patriotism, the sense of value system, what India is all about, what is its ancient tradition, and how they are linked to that tradition, how they are connected, that you can see. This book I just now spoke about, The Great Hindu Civilization by Pawan Verma. This book you can see.
Yes, sir.
And this can be a useful book for you. It's the first 5 chapters are fantastic that you can go through, and some of the ideas you can impart to them. Also, there are some. There is a book. There are some books by Sai Deepak, SAIDEEPK. There are some books you can look at Amazon, get those books, and give them that understanding of society. Also, if you reflect, Swami Chidbhuvananda commentary on Bhagavad Gita. You don't have to teach them Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, but the ideas emanating out of it, so that they can connect themselves with their rich ancient past also. And the idea of India, the inclusive society that we are. That is it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Though, I mean, we again have some questions on YouTube. These two are kind of again interlinked. The first question is, there are many values which are taught in primary schools. Still, these values need to be taught again to the same students when they enter the degree college.
Yes.
What do you think might be the reason behind this? And I think the second question is again, are we living in the post-truth era? Probably it's like, you know, an added line to the first question itself.
Maybe I can answer this. It's like this. You look at the textbooks. I was member of a committee which had gone through the books of NCERT from class 1 until class 12. And a few words have vanished from there. Few things have vanished from there, which were there in 70s. And what those things have vanished? Respect for parents, family, those have gone away. And parents have been replaced by friends. And if you talk of public schools, urban public schools, in 6th class, what we do is that as a part of curriculum, we hand in their hands Jane Eyre, Charlotte Bronte. That is, the love stories and the relationships between husband and wife are being discussed with them. So those are the things that we are discussing. There are other things that we can discuss. Then only these things. They will learn these things definitely, the relationship between man and woman. But that need not become the centrality of the discussion, apart from the technical subjects, at the tender age of 11 years, 12 years. But that is what we have done. And what we are trying to do is that the British values of individualism, where me first, if you look at all these books or the complete strand of the British curriculum, it is based on only one thing, that is called utilitarianism. What is utilitarianism? Maximize your utility. Me first, everything else later. If that is the society we want, and this is very much against the very ethos, Indian ethos, it is very much against that. Our psyche is very collective, and the aberrations that have come, say in the form of untouchability, those aberrations, the moment we became independent, were addressed through reservations and through laws against untouchability being passed. Social change is slow to take place, but it is taking place. It is slow. It is not, we cannot hasten it, but the direction is in the favor of change. The reservations are there to empower them, to remove that feeling of victimhood. The untouchability laws that have been passed, they are for that. Large number of scholarships are being given to disadvantaged groups by the government. No taxpayer is challenging it. It is technically, it is taxpayers' money that government is distributing, but it is not the utilitarian approach that is leading us to that. Whereas if you look at the British textbooks or curriculum, the theme there is, it is what we will call Jeremy Bentham's utilitarian theory. The same thing has been imposed on our textbooks since 1980s. It all started in mid-70s, and by mid-80s the task was completed. And since last 35 years, we are teaching all that nonsense, where our true moral, ethical values are not be part of the subject, not part of the curriculum. So that is it. So this needs to be changed. And yes, whatever you taught in 5th year, that needs to be reinforced. Please do that. That is why this lecture has been organized by the Faculty Induction Program of Ramanujan College, University of Delhi.
One last question, and I think that's important also. How can teacher develop human values effectively while teaching the students?
I think as teachers, we always learn. We are not merely teaching. Only thing is, if we can keep our mind and heart open, then teachers always learn. The moment the teacher stops being a student, then this kind of a question will arise. This question can be answered if the teacher continues to remain a student.
Thank you, sir. So from compliments like excellent session to informative session to awesome session to request for such more sessions, especially with you, to one of the best sessions, I formally, like for the formal vote of thanks, I hand over the portal to Dr. Nirmala Samanta, who is an associate professor in Department of English and also one of the program directors of this course. Nirmala sir, I request you to please extend a formal vote of thanks to Professor C.S. Sharma sir for such an amazing lecture.
Thank you. Thank you, Shruti. Can you hear me, Shruti?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure and a kind of privilege to thank Professor Sharma. His lectures, as you've just said, is appreciated across. I think some of the participants have seen him before. So right in the beginning, when he started speaking, they said that he's very good and we want to listen to him. So, sir, we are very happy. But today's lecture specifically, I am a teacher of English literature or literature per se. So is Shruti. We thought that, if teachers from the Department of Commerce and Management kind of get into our domain, which is literature teaching, and do analysis of a text that the way you have done, then our jobs are in peril, because you did a fantastic job of analyzing a very famous Premchand short story and brought out its nuances in the way an English literature teacher would have done. So it was a marvelous experience of interdisciplinarity and what it means. And I was so interested to hear that you often use these literary texts in your classes while you teach management students. So this is, of course, I'm sure this is a wonderful way of looking at interdisciplinarity of between subjects and texts. I'd just like to add one comment about all that you said. One of the most interesting things about that text was the opposition of the so-called Brahmin on one side, who is supposed to be known as the learned person or the knowledgeable person, versus the person who claims to be not learned at all, who is illiterate. So this dynamics between the learned and the non-learned brings us at the end of the text or the story as to what is the meaning of knowledge and who is a knowledgeable person, who is a wise person. I think this is very fundamental to teaching and to in a pedagogic situation as to what we are doing. Are we creating, what kind of human beings are we creating? Are we creating people with just information, or are we creating people who have real knowledge, which is based itself on humanity, understanding, sympathy, and all those values that you mentioned? So I think it was a brilliant text to pick up and discuss, and it has been a learning experience, sir. We will also do that in our classes now, the way you have done it. Thank you very much on behalf of the entire team, as well as on behalf of all the participants who have been here today and who probably also listen to you later on on the YouTube channel. On behalf of everybody, a very, very warm thanks to you. And we value and your association with us, and we look forward for more of it. Thank you so much, Professor Sharma.
Thank you.